heavenly mother's crying, sees her children are dying at the hands of the other child. I know her heart is breaking, I feel the earth is shaking, but rivers flow from the tears she cries. She cries, she cries. See Rachel's weeping for her children. Rachel's weeping. Somehow someone's got to save them. Save the children. And if you say that love the answer, why don't we begin? Or will we just
Hi, this is Missy, and welcome back to Visions for a Child's Heart. In case you missed our previous segment, or perhaps it's airing on a different day, I am sitting here today with none other than Mr. Chris C., founder, owner, and editor of the National Foster Focus magazine.
Well done. The only monthly foster care magazine in the country.
Only. I tried to say that, but it didn't come out.
Okay.
I knew you would fix
I'll
it
get
for
it
me.
in there.
So, welcome back.
Yeah, it's been a while. For those of you who only stopped for like 5 minutes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I've enjoyed my time with you so much. And you shared so many inspiring things for me, just helped me to reconnect during our first segment. But we didn't really get to talk about you and talk about the magazine. So share with our audience a little bit about your experience in foster care and what it was that prompted you to start
Sure.
this wonderful.
Well, I went into foster care when I was about 14 going on 15. I had special circumstances. My stepfather is a police officer, so the other officers were very nice to me, kind of kid gloves. I got to pick where I wanted to live. And I picked an older foster couple because I thought, that'll be easy to get over on them. And it turned out they were the strictest people that I'd ever met, but they were really super nice and caring, and I fit right in. And so I didn't get over on them that often, but what I did get was the structure that I didn't have when I went into care, and the tools. I've always been kind of street smart, so I had that all figured out, but the stuff that the foster kids don't know about, like checking accounts and first and last month rent being due and security deposits, just the little things. So they were very, very helpful as far as all that was concerned.
I'm just curious, what kind of kid were you?
Oh, I was bad. I was bad.
I have to stop you because I tell people, I don't believe that there are any bad kids.
Oh, if you would have met me, you would have thought different. You would have thought different. Well, maybe not bad. Maybe bad's not the right. I'm precocious,
Okay.
free-spirited.
Free-spirited is good. My favorite kind of kids, actually.
Didn't really care about the penalties for
Okay.
the stuff that I did. Kind of felt entitled because of all the bad that happened to me. I should be allowed to do whatever I wanted.
Did anybody understand what was behind that, though?
No. Well, my foster parents got it. I mean,
Okay.
and they're no nonsense people. So the first thing my foster dad, and I don't know if I can do the impression well with my voice not being there, but Chrissy, quit whining, and that was it. That was it. Yeah, that was. I got in trouble. He said, "What'd you do that for?" And I started to tell him. He said, "Chrissy, stop whining," and I never complained again. And actually, that's one of kind of the feel for the magazine. You're not going to find woe is me stories. You're not going to find life is hard stories. You're going to find pick your socks up and put them on and get to work and figure out the answer. Those are the stories that I like.
Okay, but back up because you jumped all over
Yes,
the
I'm sorry.
magazine. Because people, of course, being the heart lady, and I have even caregivers said, you're too soft. Because I believe that there is a time to whine, not just for the purpose of whining, but to get it out and to be able to move on. Because when you say, that you were a kid, you felt a sense of entitlement because of things that had happened. And I think a lot of times people don't really understand what a lot of our young people have been through. And to be able to give them an opportunity to voice that and say, okay, Now, that happened, that wasn't good, we validate your feelings, now, what are we gonna do to move forward?
The thing about me, and I think, and I appreciate that way of thinking, I truly do. But the thing about me is that you said that to me, that's the approach I would have taken to everything. I'm allowed to be sad. Miss E said so. And that's how I would have explained every bad thing I did for the next 5 years. And a lot of kids use that as a crutch. That validation that you just gave that child, in a lot of cases, is a get out of jail free card. And they
If you stay there, though.
no, and so if my caseworker's coming at me for not going to class, and I said, well, listen, you don't know what it feels like to be in foster care. Miss E gets it. Do you see what I'm saying?
And Miss E would have also been shown up at school to make sure you're behind the
Right.
class too.
But most of the folks that do the validating don't follow through. So what you'll have is and we see it a lot in the foster care alumni, you'll have, they're set on what the bad that has happened to them, and they can't get past that. And some of these folks are 20 years removed from care, and they're still feeling it, and that's okay.
And part of my thinking is because it never got validated, or they got stuck and somebody had pity. Because I'm all for the heart, but I'm also about action. And one of the greatest compliments I think I've ever received from a young person, actually it was a third party, said, she's hard, but she's fair.
Right.
So, I love you, but I'm also going to expect you to get up off your behind and do something,
And
get
if you
through
do
it.
it that way, that's okay.
Okay.
If you say, I understand what you're going through, now turn around, here's a kick in the pants, get to work.
Okay.
If you do it that way, I've got absolutely no problem. But if you coddle them, if you make it more than it has to be, then you are telling that person, yeah, you're allowed to be sad, and there's no real reason you should stop being sad. Whereas I like to come from an approach of, yes, it was temporary, it was horrible, it was sad.
Temporary.
You're allowed to feel bad about it, but it's
Right.
over. Get to work.
Okay.
Whether that work be taking care of your kids, whether that work be getting yourself a college degree or a place to live, whatever the case is, whether it's being the best burger flipper at McDonald's, whatever it is,
Give it
stop
your-
whining and get to work. Because you had the issue, you had your problem's over. And now that might be from my foster parents, that might be what I gained from my experience with them. Because I saw a man who was 67, 66 years old get up every morning at 4 o'clock to get to work at 5 o'clock. I saw that, and that's where I got my work ethic. I don't think I had a work ethic before foster care, but while I was in foster care, I would get off the bus from school, I'd go to my job cleaning the Caterpillar plant, which is big trucks, big old Mack trucks.
Like
Cat.
yeah.
Right. And my job was to clean, that's okay. My job was to clean all the bays, and my job was to clean the facility. And I got paid under the table, but I worked from 4 o'clock in the afternoon until 3:30 in the morning. And then I went home, said good morning to my dad, got my 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and then I got to school.
Wow.
Because I knew I was going to age out. And that's the problem a lot of these kids are having. They don't see it coming. How do you not see it coming? It's coming. You're going to have an 18th birthday. You're going to have a 21st birthday. It's coming. Get ready. Be prepared. I talked right into the camera that time. Sorry. But that's what needs to happen. But that's exactly what needs to happen. You need to start preparing. When I found out that no one was paying for me to be in my foster parents' house anymore, I left. I chose to leave. They told me it was a horrible idea. They told me not to do it. As a matter of fact, he followed me to the end of the road in his truck and told me to get in. And I told him, I said, listen, I'm a big strapping young man. At this point, I'm 19. I got to sign waivers to stay in care. I'm a big kid. I eat a lot. I use your water a lot. My clothes are cleaned off your electricity. At a certain point, whether you're a foster kid or not, you have to know who you are. You have to be able to see the people around you. You have to observe the fact that you have become a burden, even if they don't see you as such. But that the state is no longer paying for you when you age out. And it's unfortunate, but if you have a foster parent that's kind enough to let you stay, that's awesome. Do not take advantage of that. When I found out that nobody was paying for me except them, I left. I said, I can't do this to you anymore. I have to go. And I mean, there was a girl, and of course, there's always a girl. She was much older. She told me I could live with her, so that made it a little easier. But at the same time, I knew that him waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning was killing him. He didn't have to work anymore. He was of retirement age. And so I said, you know, I'm not going to be the reason that he has to keep working. I'm not going to be, because they were done with foster kids. I was the last one. They ended up getting back into it because they just love kids so much. But I was to be the last one, and I didn't want to be that burden. I didn't want to be the reason, because, you know, she's the greatest wife, my foster mom. She's the greatest wife in the world. She'd wake up at 4 o'clock with him. She'd get his clothes ready. She'd feed him breakfast. She'd make sure he had everything. So, I mean, I understand that there was a village raising me, and I also understood that that village was getting pretty old and didn't need to do it anymore. And so I felt the need to take myself out of care. Now,
Take note, hearts.
now, the problem with leaving care without a plan is that you just left care without a plan. And so the state needs to be notified that you've left care. The school that you go to needs to be notified that you left care. And I've touched on this in the magazine. It's not a story I enjoy telling, but when I left care, 2 days later, I got called into the vice principal's office. And at this point, I thought I was pretty close with the vice principal. I had done some athletic stuff with them. I lost all my eligibility to play basketball, but I could still help with the team. I could still go out and play with the guys and get them ready for teams and whatnot. And so I felt I had a good relationship. So when he brought me in, I didn't think anything of it. He asked me, where am I living now? I said, I live with this girl. It's pretty awesome. I'm still coming to school. I'm not going to, we're 2 weeks away from graduation, so I'm not going to screw that up. But yeah, no, I don't have to pay any rent. It's really nice. You know, I get the burdens off my foster parents. It's pretty great. He said, well, you know, you don't pay any bills. You can't prove your residency. If you can't prove your residency, you're not a member of my school district. If you're not a member of my school district, you're not in my school. And they expelled me that day. And that was a big awful pill to have to swallow. But the lady that writes my family adventure section was my best friend's mom. And she has the same type of personality as my foster parents. So, you know me, I don't like to talk about myself, really. So my best friend had to tell her that all this had happened to me. I didn't say word one. I don't really want anyone to know. I'm embarrassed at this point.
Now, was this senior year in high school? Or
Yeah.
Was this okay?
Senior year in high school, 2 weeks before graduation.
Wow.
I think I even got fitted for a cap and gown. But she has the same temperament as my foster parents. So she said, are you going to cry about it? Or are you going to get in the car, get your GED, and get enrolled in college today? And so she made me get in the car. The GED test, well, when you have all your years of school, you're ready for the GED test. Got done in like 5 minutes. And she took me, I don't know how exactly it happened, but I guess at that time they gave me your score right then. They gave me my paper, she drove me up the road to the college, and I gave them that, and they said you're enrolled, and then the Middletons gave me a place to stay until college started, and he was my roommate, and yeah, I didn't finish that either, but that was just because that's just, I got married and whatnot, but yeah, and now I own a magazine, so you know, it doesn't really matter. It obviously matters to you, the person it's happening to, and your immediate family and friends, but it doesn't matter what happens between the ages of 15 and 20. It's what you do when you catch your breath and you start to plan your own life. And that's where the magazine comes from. I aged out. I didn't know what options I had. I didn't really understand what exactly happened to me. I didn't really understand foster care, even though I'd been living in it for 5 years. And so I said there's no information. And this is at the advent of the internet, so there wasn't a whole lot of information about anything other than fantasy sports at that point. But I felt like there needed to be a place where anyone could get information about foster care like that. You know,
If this magazine had been in existence during that period in your life, how do you think it would have been different for you?
I would have seen examples. Like Derek Clark, who I've talked about before, the motivational speakers in foster care, he even now is a real inspiration because, you know, just like me, aged out, didn't know what to do. Turns out he's got a way with words and getting people inspired. And had I read that article, I would have known there was another path. Had I known Jimmy Graham was in foster care as an athlete, that would have been huge for me. Had I known Marilyn Monroe was in foster care, you know, as a person who knows who Marilyn Monroe is, that's inspiring. And also, I mean, to know that there's other kids out there that need an adopted. I feature those kids from the Heart Gallery, and you know, it would have been nice to know that there was somebody in a similar position as me, and it just didn't happen. I told you this before. Until, I wouldn't say until me, but until recently, the only foster care news you got was at the end of the news broadcast, and it was one of two things. Either something horrific happened, they found some kids in a cage, locked in a closet, whatever the case, or somebody just adopted 10 kids out of foster care. But that was it. Where's the Jimmy Graham in that? Where's the Uninterrupted Scholars Act? Where is, you know, kinship care? What is kinship care? If this magazine was available 10, 15 years ago, you would have known what kinship care was. You would have understood every single aspect of the Fostering Connections Act and why it was important, and the people that put it together and why they put it together. As it stands, when that Fostering Connections Act came out, who knew? Who knew?
Now, one of the things that I have, because I know you have digital version and you have the hard copy, and I personally like hard copies because I can take it with me and
I
do
do
things.
too. That's why I did it.
But one of the issues that I have, because I'm, you know, on my Facebook page for a Child's Heart, I always try to post anything that I think that our young people will go through and look at. And one of my greatest frustrations is people don't read.
Yes, that was a concern of mine when I started. But we are getting to a world where if it's on a computer screen, you'll read it. If it's on a TV show, you'll read it.
Add a picture to it, and
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
something.
while this is no longer really the norm, which kills me because I got into it for the feel, the smell, and the ink on your fingers. But the
You
digital,
cut the picture out and put it up on the
Yeah.
wall in a frame.
but the digital version, it gives people that same feel because it's laid out like a magazine, but they don't have to touch anything. They don't have to worry about losing it. They can look at it, come back to it. You know, it gives them.
Somebody can send a link to a page, and they
Yeah,
can.
exactly. And people throw it in their email, newsletters. I get requests all the time. Can we borrow an article? And I'm more than happy to do that. I love partnering up with people. But yeah, the digital version, while I'm not a big fan, because I would prefer everybody took the hard copy, it does open up a world to people that are just too busy to deal with a magazine, or people that prefer to be on their phone or prefer to be on their computer. It gives them, you know, a way to enjoy it, and it was kind of like wow, I can put this as a digital thing, and you know, I didn't even think of it until about, I'd say, 6-7 months in. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So,
it's
and the
been nice.
magazine is just a year old, right?
We're going into the year 2. So
Wow.
we're on the 8th, we're on the 9th issue of the second year. And so we'll have our 2-year anniversary in May. And like always in May, because it's National Foster Care Month, I try and go all out. So in May we'll have Brian Samuels for the Department of Children and Youth, the guy when it comes to decision making as far as that goes. We'll have Derek Clark. I have a couple other surprises and secrets up my sleeve. But now that it's established, I can do more. I can really see what we can do with this. For instance, tentatively planned in July, I'm going to have a throwback issue, and I'm really excited about this because this particular one, it's going to be the first one. I'm going to do it in the 1950s. I've already got my printer my printer has already found the old paper.
The brown paper.
They found the old paper. All my ads, all my decals will be in a 50s style.
Gosh.
All the stories will be presented in first-hand accounts from that era. So I've got Larry Adams, who grew up in Boys Town, and he's going to talk about that. I know a fella who grew up in the cottages. I don't know if you remember this, but there was a while where foster homes were actually institutions, and they were cottages lined up like a summer camp. The worst summer camp ever, but they were all lined up like a summer camp. And the fella tells me a story how the camp had one bike, and they used to take turns riding all around, each kid one bike. And so I'd like to see somebody talk about that. I'd also like to have people talk about how African Americans were treated at that time period. And even though it wasn't discussed, gay and lesbians, I'd like to see how they were treated in that era. And the reason I'm doing that, exactly, and the reason I'm doing that is it's not that bad right now. It was, even when I was in care, compared to the 50s, cakewalk. I was allowed to do what I wanted. You meet somebody who came up in the 50s, and I get to meet a lot of these folks, and the people that came up in the 50s and 60s, I mean, beatings were good mornings. I mean, honestly, I mean, you were as likely to have your breakfast thrown at you as you were to get to eat it.
One of the books I would actually like to share with you, Rebecca, I actually picked up the book at a book fair down in Southern California. It's called, it just jumped out at me, Foster Care Odyssey. And it turns out it was an African American woman who grew up in care and basically orphanages in the 50s, late 50s, early 60s. And what was interesting to me is to compare the historical events that were going on and realize I could have been in that situation. And I was just so touched. I found her and looked her up. She'd be an interesting person to share. And I called her, we had a conversation, there's a sequel, I'm still waiting for the sequel.
Is she still around?
As far as I know.
Well, then you'll have to give me that contact. And that's how I do it. Now I want her. And so now she'll have to be in the magazine.
Yeah, it was just awesome. It just totally blew me away. I get goosebumps as I think about it. But all of these things that are going on, and I think the other part, when we look at children who have been separated from their biological families or have no ties, that sense of history. This is another area of history. This is like, okay, this was not my biological family, however, this is what was going on that I could have been a part of. So it just gives that sense of connectedness.
Well, most people don't know about Mary Beth, the first girl to ever be in foster care. And I had the great fortune of John DeGarmo, who's, well, I think you might be familiar with Dr. DeGarmo out of Georgia. He writes a lot of books, Fostering Hope and things like that. And he is very in tune with how it all started. And I'll be honest with you, I'd like to run that story 4 or 5 different times a year. I don't think people understand that before, I think it's 1870s, I believe is the year, there was no foster care system. If they're tramps, you remember the tramps? You remember they used to call kids tramps? The kids that used to ride along with the hobos on the train? Those are your foster kids, you know, and just a real quick go back to the
I just want to add something that just crossed my mind. You're talking about hobos. I think about the Little Rascals.
Yeah.
So and a shout out to the Little Rascals on Facebook.
I'm a member too. Yeah. There's a group of, in case you're not familiar, there's a group of former foster kids, and they call themselves the Little Rascals, and they've all found each other, and they have a fun little group. And if I'm not mistaken, aren't you all going to meet each other very soon? I think a bunch of them are traveling to meet each other.
I know that was a thought. I haven't been involved.
Oh, you're going to get a ticket.
Lately, but it was something we had talked about doing for Foster Pride for last May. And so
we got to pull it all together. I mean, Derek's running around meeting all of us, so I mean, we've got to all get together. But I'm obviously white. But I don't necessarily have all the attributes of your everyday white. I mean, my eyes are a little bit smaller than the norm, and my lips are a little bit bigger. And in that time period, I would have been segregated away from white people. And even though that is my race, they would have moved me because I didn't look like everybody else. So just those little things that people don't know, those are invaluable. Those are the foundation. Those are the building blocks for what we have now. So if we revisit those and we understand why things happen the way they happen, we can prevent anything even remotely close to happening again.
And also for gratitude, just to give thanks. When things seem so hard, people say, well, Smile, it could be worse. It's like, yeah, but when we look at we're not where we want to be, but we're not where it used to be.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it right now, where we are as a foster care society, it's not that bad. We still have the epidemic. Sure, we have 400,000 kids in care every year. We get that, but that's gonna happen, Missy. We know that. It's not the kids' fault. Parents go funny. Parents, lose their kids and they end up in care. So that's not gonna change. But what we can change is that half of us end up homeless. What we can change is that 70% of us end up in jail, or 85% of us don't graduate or get a degree. We can change all those things, and if the magazine could be a catalyst for that, or if I can play a hand in that, or you keep playing a hand in that as you have, we've got success stories through the art. So if we can all do that, then those things get even less. And then when you look back at the 50s to now, you're just flabbergasted. How could it ever be that bad?
And then we can project greater progress
Gotta make
in
it
the
better.
future, because it's really, when we say the children are our future, you are our future. So actually, I'm going to be doing a segment on Heart Talk, and next month I'm called the Children Become the Village.
I like that.
So it's really interesting because one of the rascals, Nicole, has just got her foster care license.
She's very excited. She's going to write about it for the magazine too.
Cool.
This is a former foster kid who's now a foster parent. Doesn't happen that often, so it's really neat, and I really want people to learn.
Well, I know
about
about 3 that are actually going through the process now.
Isn't it
It's really
fun?
exciting to
Isn't it
me.
nice to see us all coming back? I mean,
Yeah.
you've helped these kids, and it's got to be really fulfilling for you to see all of us come back, and we're not ashamed anymore, and we don't mind being front and center, and it's because people like you. I'm gonna make you cry, but it's people like you who believed in us enough that we didn't have to feel like second-class citizens anymore. So when I walk in to New Orleans training camp, I have the backing of you and 100,000 people like you to push me through the door. So, what you do is invaluable, and if there's more of you out there, what you do is invaluable. And if you're a foster kid, appreciate what's happening for you now. These people weren't here 15 years ago. You should be very appreciative that the people are putting in the work for you.
You couldn't have ended up on a better note. So that's a message. And I hope that if you've listened to this interview, whether you are a current, transitioning, or former foster youth, if you're a caregiver or an advocate for our foster youth, I want you to take a look at Foster Focus magazine. Awesome information. You might want to contribute something to the story to the magazine. Give us your email address and the website.
Sure. I have an open door policy for writers, so if you have a story that's both entertaining and about foster care, I'd be interested in reading that. You can send that to Chris at fosterfocusmag.com, CHRIS. And of course, fosterfocusmag.com. I put headlines from across the country up every Sunday night, so you know what's going on across the country. I also have good links for pretty much everything foster care related, as well as the content for the issues that I put out myself. So.
And articles on Hearts. Mr. Kevin Brown is featured this month.
Yeah, he was a guest speaker, and his book, and he's a success story of yours, but his book, 10 Ways Anyone Can Get Out of College Debt-Free. I'm good at that. We featured that, and I hope he's getting some more sales.
My books.
Yes.
No copies, but
yeah, the village will be in. We have a new section called the Writers Market, where you can get to see some of the independent writers alongside some of the more established publishing houses and the books they have for foster care. And I've just been overwhelmed that people really wanted to put their books in my magazine. It's been a big kick for me. It's been really neat to see that people are behind it, and whether or not that has anything to do with the fact that I was a foster kid doesn't matter to me at all.
well, I think
Find the
it
magazine.
eventually does. But I think it's because of the passion and the caring that's behind it. We know that you're not doing this just as a business venture. You're giving it the integrity and
It needs it.
of being a business, but you're also giving it heart, and that's what I appreciate.
We're
just-
big time people. We need to be treated as such.
There you go.
Steve, I listed a bunch of them already. The Jimmy Grahams, the Jimmy Waynes. These are invaluable members of our entertainment and sports worlds that were in foster care, and they deserve to
And
be
there are
shined.
more to be seen. There were more that will feel empowered to come forth.
And that's
to
the
speak
hope.
up now.
That's
yes,
the hope.
Exactly. So thank you for joining us. I want a big hug.
Yes, ma'am.
And thank you for being with us. Thank you for watching Visions for a Child's Heart. Do something special for a child's heart and visit our website at www.forachildsheart.org. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.
But rivers flow from the tears she cries. She cries, she cries. See Rachel's